Welcome to SEO Chess and welcome to the game number 2 of the World Chess Championship match between Magnus Carlsen and Carlsen-Nepomniachtchi. And today's game was very exciting and again not very usual of the encounters that we are used to. It started as a Catalan. It's a Catalan, and after Queen C2, I guess this was the first surprise, although it's an opening that's been popping up a lot lately. And here, the first part, which was a bit unusual for me, was knight e5. It's been played a little bit, but it's a bit of an unusual idea. And I'm a bit familiar with the Catalan, but from here, for me, this was new territory. But according to my database, this wasn't new at all. I've played these kind of positions against the computer, and no matter which side you play here against the computer, you lose, and that's mainly because the positions are not usual. So one thing a player needs to be familiar with if you're going to play this is the concept of compensation, because it's not a sacrifice similar to the one we witnessed yesterday, where someone gives a pawn in exchange for one thing. In this particular case, in the Catalan, it's a sacrifice which comes with other elements, not just activity, but maybe positional, space, and so on. So it's a lot more of a complex opening. Nepo played c6, and after a5, he closes d5, because now the diagonal on the g2 a8 needs to be covered, and after f6 the knight is to go back, and queen d7. This was, according to my database, the first new move, and previously b4 had been tried here. So e4, knight b4, queen e2, because the queen is obviously under attack, and now knight d3. Kasparov had this concept that if you manage to get a knight on the 6th rank, it's worth more than a rook, and you can imagine this knight here. Now, white has given up a pawn. In exchange, he's got more active pieces and more development. Whereas black, this knight on d3 is occupying a very good square. e5, should be 7. Black has to catch up a little bit with development, and here Nepo played Carlsen played knight e4, and during the game I was thinking, why not take on e4, and then it occurred to me that after knight takes, queen takes, knight g5, e6 is very weak, and there's potential for kingside attack. A lot of white pieces are getting into the game very quickly, so this was not advisable. Nepo correctly played knight a6, and he played it fairly quickly. Took him about a minute or so. So knight e5, and here bishop takes, pawn takes, and again I thought, here, why not he played knight ac5, and I was thinking, why not knight takes on e5, and here of course after knight g5 you've got the same problem, but just worse. The knight is under attack, e6 is under attack, h7 is under attack, and things will happen very quickly here. And Nepo played knight a to c5. Carlsen said during the press conference that he missed this move, knight a c5, which made me think, what was he thinking about in this position? And then I realized that knight b4, it's easy to think of this move as much more offensive than knight c5. And he was thinking that after knight d6, he gets in before black can react, but knight c5 took him by surprise, and now after knight d6, knight b3 comes with a tempo. So it took Carlsen about 11 minutes to decide on knight d6, but knight b3, he had already decided that he was going to sacrifice material. So now we see, like, if you think about yesterday's game, you see a different kind of sacrifice here. It's kind of forced to go into this, but there is compensation. The knight on d6 is worth more than a rook. Its impact on the game and the squares it influences makes it a very dangerous piece. We call this kind of knight an octopus. So here rook b8, rook d1. Okay, bishop a8. Very diligent defense by Nepo. And Carlsen played bishop e4. It took him a long time. It took about 8 minutes to find this move, but I didn't really fully appreciate its value until the press conference when Nepo commented that this was actually a genius move. And it's the move which gives a lot of the counterplay that we subsequently see in the game. Nepo quickly played c3, which he regretted. I remember it took him about 10 minutes to play c3. And the reason why he played it, he said during the press conference, because it didn't make sense. It's a move which never even occurred across my radar during the game. And he played it as a distraction to a kingside attack. So c3, you appreciate its value when you consider, let's say, an aggressive continuation like queen h4, g6, bishop takes, pawn takes, queen check. And here, queen g7 is equalizing. But if you look at bishop g6 and queen g7, suddenly the bishop has to go back, and when you take on b2, this pawn on b2 becomes dangerous. In the game, Carlsen played a strong move, queen c2. Again, after g6, if you consider the sacrificed bishop g6, cb2 now again takes much more of importance, because by the time, let's say, you return the bishop and he protects the b pawn, it becomes a dangerous pawn. That's why c3 was a good move. But here, when he played c3, he missed some other ideas which could have been potentially stronger, I think, like queen e7, which he correctly mentioned after the game in the press conference. But c3, queen c2, g6, b takes, and queen takes. We get this position where, because of the knight, white can continue pressing in this position, and with threats, of course, when he takes here, he's threatening knight f6 check, rook b6. Here it occurred to me that maybe after queen c5 he's planning to take on c5, but this would have been a mistake, because after after e takes d6, queen takes d6, he has the move queen takes a7, and because of the weak pawns and the past extra pawn, white is winning here. So he couldn't do that immediately. He first played rook db8, and after king g2, a6, king h3, which was a move I actually did not anticipate, but a very interesting move. The king is completely safe here, and after rook c, king g, queen c7, queen g4, again very nice move. And also he found this in time trouble. So if queen g4 comes with some threats and pretty much sort of goes in the direction of equalizing, pawn takes, queen takes, and now c5. Anand spotted this move before it even came on the board, which was quite nice, queen c5, and their debate was whether this was an easily drawn position. After rook a6, rook f8, he doesn't rush to play queen f5. These separated pawns might be a problem, but he plays rook f8 first and then plays queen f5 check. So I kind of knew that this was a draw, but this kind of ending was a draw, but I wasn't sure. So I did some checking and I found a few games. And interesting, Yu Yang Yi has got quite a few games where he has won in this ending. But in those cases, in all those cases, the defending king was separated from these pawns. But in this particular case, it's actually just completely drawn. Carlsen has played a couple of these endings himself, these exact endings. But Nepo found a very nice way of forcing the situation here with this threat and repetition. And the game reached a draw. So game 2 ends in a draw, and it wasn't like a doubt draw. It's a fighting draw, and I really always appreciate this. The result doesn't really show the kind of fight that actually happened during the game, but it was a very interesting game nevertheless.